Welcome back to the Criminologist channel, where we dive deep into the most chilling and mysterious cases that have left investigators puzzled for years. Autumn Lane McClure was a 16-year-old girl living with her grandmother in Ormond Beach, Florida. She was studying at the Mainland High School. On May 10, 2004, Autumn's grandmother called the sheriff's office to report her missing after she did not return home that day. Autumn was last seen with her boyfriend. Police questioned her boyfriend, who told them that he had dropped Autumn off at the Volusia Mall and had not seen her since then. A search was launched for the missing teenager, but nothing turned up. Sometime afterward, Autumn's grandmother told detectives that Autumn called her from a different area code and that she had received some letters from Autumn postmarked from Melbourne, Florida, claiming she was okay and would return home after she turned 18. The case went quiet until 2004, when the detectives received information that Autumn was staying at a house with two people, Brian Donnelly and Jessica Freeman. When detectives went to the couple's home, they said Autumn had stayed with them for a few days and then left. They said that they were co-workers of Autumn's at a Winn-Dixie supermarket. They told detectives that Autumn didn't get along with her grandmother, and they had been letting her stay at the trailer for a couple of days, but did not know anything else. The case then went cold, but detectives continued working the case, obtaining DNA from family members and entering it in a national database of missing children. The case remained cold until 12 years later, when detectives again contacted the boyfriend again. This time, her boyfriend claimed that he had lied to them about dropping Autumn at the Volusia Mall. He said he had actually dropped her off at the Seabreeze Bridge, where she then got into a car with Jessica Freeman. Detectives tracked down Freeman, who was now living in Nevada, and she claimed she did not know anything about Autumn's disappearance. In 2021, detectives caught a break when a tipster told police that Freeman and Donnelly were involved in Autumn's disappearance. The police questioned Freeman again, who this time asked for immunity in exchange for her answering questions about Autumn's disappearance. Freeman told detectives that she worked with Autumn and she and Donnelly allowed her to stay with them at the trailer. Freeman said she was also in a sexual relationship with the couple. Freeman told investigators that one day she returned home to see Donnelly allegedly choking Autumn in the bathroom. She was unable to save Autumn, and she left the trailer where the three lived. When she returned 2 weeks later and inquired about what had happened to Autumn, Donnelly allegedly told her, "Shut up, or the same thing will happen to you." Over the years, Donnelly allegedly told Freeman several times about how he had cut Autumn up and buried her and spread her parts over different parts. She said that she did not know where Donnelly had buried her body. But in late 2023, Freeman told authorities that she believes Autumn's body was buried beneath the trailer, as Donnelly had allegedly expressed satisfaction at the fact new concrete had been placed on the site. Using ground-penetrating radar, authorities searched surface. They found spots of different density than the surrounding soil. Subsequently, authorities worked with the new owner of a trailer on the property to excavate the remains. In February 2024, authorities recovered what they say 99.9% of Autumn's remains, which were taken to the medical examiner to confirm her identification. Despite her remains being found, Donnelly could not be charged as he died in 2022. Linda Sue Childers. In May 1974, Connecticut State Police received a tip about two murders that had occurred at a home on Shoeville Road, Ledyard, Connecticut. Investigators searched the house and the surrounding area. They soon found decomposed bodies of a man and a woman in two shallow graves several hundred feet behind the house. The man would later be identified as convicted serial bank robber Gustavus Lee Carmichael, who had escaped from custody. He had committed multiple bank robberies across the nation, and in 1970 he was apprehended for the theft of $60,000 from a bank in New Jersey. Additionally, throughout his lifetime, He had faced convictions for various offenses such as burglary, kidnapping, attempted burglary, grand larceny, assault and battery, and armed robbery. However, in October 1970, during his transfer from a Massachusetts jail to federal court in Hartford, Connecticut, he and another inmate managed to escape custody, prompting the FBI to issue a federal warrant for his arrest. While on the run, he met the woman and they began to go by the names Dirk and Lorraine Stahl. They were staying at the home of Richard DeFreitas and Donald Brandt, fellow bank robbers. DeFreitas and Brandt possessed several safe houses utilized to harbor fugitives evading law enforcement. Nonetheless, the woman, Lorraine Stahl, confided in DeFreitas' wife that she was afraid of the lifestyle they were leading. When DeFreitas learned about her fears, he told Brandt, and they decided to eliminate Carmichael and the woman, fearing that her potential capture could lead to exposure of their illicit operations. Given the perceived difficulty of eliminating the woman without Carmichael's likely intervention, they opted to murder Carmichael as well. Investigators believed Carmichael and the woman were killed on December 31, 1970, 4 years earlier. DeFreitas and Brandt fatally shot Carmichael and the woman, then dumped their bodies, which remained undiscovered for more than 3 years. Richard DeFreitas and Donald Brandt were eventually convicted of the murders and have since died. Even though the man was identified, the woman was never identified, as she had used an alias that was never verified. Before going by the name Lorraine Stahl, she was known to use the names Connie and Sandy, and was known to drive around in a 1964 green Oldsmobile with either Massachusetts or Maine plates. This car was eventually found dumped in Hartford with a Maine inspection sticker on the license plate. She was known to have possibly worked in New York City. After the bodies were discovered, police found clothes and jewelry with the woman's remains, including a tan leather wet-look vest, a gold or tan sweater, a brown tweed skirt, and a pair of brown granny boots. She also was wearing a pendant and rings, according to state police. A class ring had the letters JHSN monogrammed, the initials ILN, and the date 1917 engraved inside. Lorraine Stahl would go unidentified for 50 years. Her case profile was entered into National Missing and Unidentified Person System in 2011 and CODIS in 2012, but she remained unidentified. Then, in 2022, DNA samples were to Autumn Labs, who were able to build a DNA profile of the victim. In January 2024, the results helped find a connection with the victim's sister. They also found out that the victim had a daughter who provided DNA sample, and soon, the Lorraine Stahl was identified as Linda Sue Childers. Childers was born September 4, 1946, and was originally from Louisville, Kentucky. Her sister and daughter were notified of her identification. The case was solved after more than 50 years. Kelle Ann Workman. Kelle Ann Workman was a 24-year-old woman living with her parents in Douglas County, Missouri. Her parents described her as a quiet, independent, and hard-working woman. Her parents were dairy farmers, and Kelle helped on the farm, but she also provided lawn care and maintenance services, often completed house and yard work for people in the Dogwood area. On June 30, 1989, Kelle was mowing the grass at Dogwood Cemetery, adjoining the Pleasant Southern Baptist Church. Kelle was meticulous about her work, clipping along the rows of headstones before using trimmers to cut the stray blades from around each marker. She started working around 3:30 p.m. At around 5 p.m., it started raining, and Kelle went home to feed the calves while her parents milked cows at their rented Seymour farm. When the rain stopped at 5:40, Kelle was back at the cemetery. Her uncle saw her mowing as he drove past the lot on Missouri 14 in Douglas County. This was the last time Kelle was seen alive. 20 minutes later, with less than half of the job completed, it appears that Kelle left the mower beside a tombstone and left the cemetery. When she failed to return home for dinner later that night, Her parents became worried and reported her missing to the police. However, police told her parents to wait, as they suggested she may have run away. Her parents disagreed, as Kelle was dependable and would not have left her work unfinished. Her parents and friends organized their own searches, and soon, despite suggesting Kelle ran away, the police launched a wide search for her in and around Douglas County. Kelle's 1986 Oldsmobile was found in the church's parking lot with its keys in the ignition. For several days, the search involved hundreds of volunteers, sniffer dogs, and helicopters scouring the countryside. However, nothing would be found. Then, 7 days later, on the 7th of July, a farmer and his son in nearby Christian County stumbled upon Kelle's remains submerged in water from the waist down. Her body was found about 10 miles from where she disappeared. Her body was fully clothed but so badly decomposed that it took dental records to identify her. How she died remains murky. Her death certificate lists homicidal violence. Authorities believe that Kelle was abducted from the cemetery with a motive of sexual assault. However, at the time the autopsy stated she was not sexually assaulted. It was only recently that the investigators confirmed that Kelle was indeed sexually assaulted. She probably died in the early hours of July 1st. However, due to the state of decomposition, they could not determine the time of death or the cause of death. Kelle's mother, Joan Workman, believes she knows the exact moment Kelle died. She said that after reporting her missing on 1st July at 3:30 a.m., as she sat on the living room couch and worried about Kelle with family and friends, she felt a surge of panic and pain in her chest. She thought herself, "Hang on, Kelle, hang on." But then the feeling passed, and Joan was left dead inside. Kelle's body was interred at the Dogwood Cemetery. Kelle's parents harbored frustration toward the Douglas County Sheriff's Department, feeling that had the police treated the case with the gravity it deserved from the outset, there might have been a chance to save Kelle. Their anger stemmed from the failure of the police to dust Kelle's 1986 Oldsmobile Cutlass for fingerprints. Moreover, they expressed disappointment that crucial pieces of information, such as reports of a screaming woman, were overlooked amid the chaos of the initial night. A few months later, Kelle's mother learned that 4 days after Kelle's abduction, an anonymous caller reached out to her home, leaving a message with another family member regarding a sighting of someone at the Workman residence on the afternoon of the abduction. Surprisingly, this caller did not reach out to any law enforcement agencies involved in the investigation. Joan believes that her daughter might have known her abductor as and assailants. A reward of $10,000 was offered. Police questioned several suspects over the years, but none were ever charged. There were 2 suspects who were repeatedly questioned in Kelle's murder. Dwight and Bobby Banks were 2 brothers who had been pulled over by a Missouri Highway Patrol officer in 1990 as they were traveling down the highway in a pickup truck on the night of Kelle's disappearance. It is unclear why they were suspected in Kelle's murder, but Dwight Banks was asked by police to take a polygraph test regarding Kelle Workman's murder, which he agreed to take. He reportedly passed the test. A few years later, Dwight and his brother Bobby again became a suspect after Dwight reportedly confessed to several people to murdering Kelle. In a 1995 article from the Springfield News Leader, it was reported that Dwight had confessed multiple times to killing Kelle. However, he later asserted that these confessions were made in jest, attributing them to being under the influence of alcohol at the time. Dwight admitted that he and Bobby saw Kelle just a few hours before she was abducted, where she was working at the Dogwood store. But he said he didn't kill her. Dwight Banks added that his brother Bobby also is innocent. At the time of Kelle's disappearance, Dwight Banks told the news leader that he and Bobby were at his house eating fried chicken. However, the news leader also reported that authorities have been told that Dwight Banks may have taken drugs before the 1990 polygraph examination, which he had passed. Later, Dwight's brother Bobby asked an ex-girlfriend to provide an alibi for him for the evening Kelle went missing, which she reported to police. The news leader reported that Bobby Banks failed the polygraph test, which Dwight Banks attributed to his brother's frail emotions. 9 years later, the Missouri Highway Patrol Crime Lab issued a warrant for 2 men, one of which was Dwight, seeking DNA evidence allegedly connecting him to the killing, but the tests did not yield conclusive findings. On February 20, 2024, the authorities said at a news conference that 3 men had been arrested and indicted on charges of first-degree murder, forcible rape, and first-degree kidnapping. The men were identified as Wiley Belt and the initial suspects, brothers Dwight Banks and Bobby Banks. Investigators say the case was cracked wide open by an eyewitness, someone in the community who came forward, giving them the evidence needed to take this case to a grand jury. All 3 men are now in the mid-60s at the time of the arrest. Currently, the Banks brothers and Belt are being held at the Douglas County Jail in Ava, where each is held on a $250,000 cash bond. If you're as captivated by these cases as we are, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Criminologist, and hit that bell icon for more deep dives into true crime.